The Victorian era was the period spanning Queen Victoria's reign. It began in 1837 when Victoria became queen and ended in 1901 when she died. Women were confined to their household duties and were dominated by men because families in the Victorian era were patriarchal. Because there were few job opportunities for women, they were dependent on their husbands economically. Unmarried women were able to earn a small living by becoming a governess or a private teacher for a wealthy family. It was during this time period that Charlotte Bronte wrote her classic novel, Jane Eyre. In the novel, Jane, an 18-year-old governess, is able to reject being controlled by both Mr. Rochester and St. John and ultimately learns how to make her own decisions in life. Through the strong character of Jane, Bronte hopes to help women overcome oppression. In her novel, Bronte suggests that a patriarchal society causes women to be trapped in their roles as subordinates and encourages them to escape the oppression and achieve autonomy through devotion to a religion. Men see women as weak, so they feel like it is their responsibility to guide and protect them by controlling them. Bronte often uses metaphors to convey this idea. Several times in the novel, Mr. Rochester refers to Jane as his pet lamb. His comparison of Jane to a lamb reveals the typical male belief that women are incapable of caring for themselves and need a man to shelter them. Men do not see women as equals, but rather as pets that they have ownership over. Men not only believe that they have a responsibility to women, but they feel as if they have a duty to God as well. As St. John is trying to convince Jane to marry him and become his helper, he says, "You shall be mine, I claim you, not for my pleasure, but for my sovereign service." St. John's tone is very firm, portraying his power over Jane. He believes that by taking control over her, he is able to do God's work. Later, when Jane refuses his proposal, St. John warns her that she is sinning by not listening to him. This warning demonstrates that men only want to help and see their actions as selfless and for the benefit of women. They believe that women need the guidance of men to stay moral. However, despite the good intentions, men actually hurt women by taking away their freedom, which is evident when Mr. Rochester refers to Jane as his prisoner. This sense of responsibility to women and to God causes men to assert the control and oppress women. Constantly oppressed by society, women begin to believe in their inferiority and struggle to force themselves to conform to the demands of men. The more time Jane spends with St. John, the more she feels obligated to listen to him. Bronte uses forceful words such as stifle, wrest, and force to emphasize how hard Jane tries to give up her own personal needs just to comply with St. John's demands. As women begin to see themselves as inferiors to men, they feel as if they must make sacrifices for them. Women then start to follow men's orders without thinking, which is exemplified when Jane helps Mr. Rochester with his horse. The independent clause, "I was disposed to obey," is tagged on to the end of the sentence to emphasize that Jane does not have a reason for why she must listen. She demonstrates that women will fall into their roles as subordinates and just accept their inferiority as a fact. They no longer see themselves as individuals that have a right to assert their independence. As women fail to see themselves as equals to men, they revere them rather than God. Jane calls Mr. Rochester her idol and forgets about the real God. Women begin to see men as more superior than they really are and lose sight of their religion. Only through the devotion to their religion can women escape the oppression. Jane is able to see that all people have faults. She realizes that men and women are equal and the only superior being is God. Once women are able to accept that men are inferior to God, they will be able to rely on themselves and their faith rather than men. Jane finally sees that only she can help herself. She alludes to the Gospel of Matthew, showing that her strength comes from the teachings of the Bible. "You" is repeated many times, emphasizing that women do not need the guidance of men for help. By following what she thinks is right according to her religious values, Jane is able to resist St. John. She boldly says to him, "God did not give me my life to throw away, and to do as you wish me would, I begin to think, be almost equivalent to committing suicide." She is finally able to see that St. John's demands are not the will of God. Women's dedication to their faith gives them the assurance and the confidence that their decisions that they make are right. By staying true to their moral values, women are able to assert their own opinion and be free from the oppression of men. Although female oppression no longer seems to be a problem in the United States, it still exists in other places around the world, such as Africa, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. By embracing a self-empowering religion, women may be able to escape the control of men and achieve the independence that they rightfully deserve.